and a lot, especially locally these days, around the issue of unleaded and leaded avgas and what's happening. And something that I read here just recently that really shows the conflict and what the challenges are that we're facing. So NATA, the National Air Transportation Association, has issued a information paper just recently entitled Factors Affecting the Commercial Sale of Emerging Unleaded Aviation Fuels. And that paper talks about the lack of compliance to ASTM standards for, certainly for one of those fuel providers. If you remember, there are now 3 candidate fuels that are under development and being tested. One of them doesn't apply to ASTM. 2 of them are going through, or one of them is going through the PAFI program, the FAA PAFI. The other 2 have gone through the STC. So you have, this interesting paper is worth reading about the challenges of getting these fuels out available commercially. The flip side of it, that one of the STC providers has through Vitol as aviation, has refined 1 million gallons of their unleaded, 100 unleaded product, but have no place to sell it. So, and still, the controversy is whether, how this is going to be standardized and how is the industry going to accept it. So, that we're all still going down that process, obviously, as an industry, and but there's a lot of challenges still to be resolved. And, these 2 examples are ones that you point to that things that we have to overcome. Second thing is that Dave, Bill Payne, and I had an opportunity to get on a video conference with Dror Yahav, right? Who's the CEO of Universal Avionics. And, in my past role at Jefferson, we've had years, decades of experience. Universal Avionics, great company. Dror showed us a technology that they're developing using AI to listen to the radio frequency, listen to the radio traffic, and translate that both textually and graphically, air check it, and do a number of other things with that information before presenting it to either in the cockpit to the pilot. Our interest, as we talked about, is on the air traffic control side. And so they haven't really publicly announced what they're doing. There's a lot of things they showed us we can't talk about because it's still private, but he was very open to our discussion about putting a demonstrator of that technology in the digital tower when the timing is right. And so, but let me tell you, so again, it's not just translating the verbiage into text. It is also using AI to validate and to ensure that the information is correct, and to potentially to point out errors in what's being communicated. So really, really fascinating. And like I said, they're interested in working with us. Dave and Bill and I are certainly interested in pursuing that as we go forward. So more to come on that. And then the last thing I have is, at the last meeting, I said to everyone that the scholarship applications were open for the Wings of Rocky Captain Jeppesen flying scholarships. And I asked that, that you pass the word, and I think you did. We had 109 applications that qualified, and these are young people aged 15 to 18. 109 applications, we did 53 interviews. 26 young people got scholarships ranging from $6,000 to, most of them were $12,000 scholarships to go get their private pilot's license. And we had great representation around the state, so it wasn't just Front Range. So again, I wanted to thank everyone for passing that word, and especially we had Western Slope participation really for the first time, and so that's exciting. So the skies are going to get a little bit more crowded beginning right around May, they have to get their FAA medical and pass the written test. And then there's the 26 young people achieve their private pilot's license, and we're excited about that.
Very good. Trimby?
Oh, my turn. Yeah, you're the chair now, so I'm expecting your report. Okay, yeah, so I'm Trimby. I'm the pilot organizations representative for the state. So I usually start with Colorado Pilots Association because it's the biggest association. Obviously, they've been very busy with House Bill 24. Their mountain flying courses will be, but for the record, I give a lot of dates and numbers. So if you want to write anything down, you can. Otherwise, just see me later and I can give you the dates in particular. So the mountain flying courses are going to be June 22nd, August 24th, and September 21st. All of them held at CAPA at the hangar, which is CAPA's administration building. Most of you guys know that. Bill Standifer worked to create a Hagerman Pass visual waypoint called VPHGR, and is working also with a chart supplement with special notices related to mountain flying. And he will present at Oshkosh on Wednesday.
I was just gonna ask where Hagerman Pass is.
Did I say Hagerman?
I pronounce it Hagerman, but
I say
between
Hague
basalt
because there's
and
only
Redfield.
one G.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, so Bill Standifer is going to present at Oshkosh on Wednesday, July 24th at 10 a.m. And CPA is looking forward to working with CDOT at the tent or booth or whatever it's going to be at Oshkosh.
Booth in the tent.
They're very excited about that. And let's see, the CPA Education Committee attended a Brighton Career Fair to talk about aviation last weekend, and on April 26th, they'll be at St. Vrain Valley Innovation Center in Longmont, talking about aviation. That's run by Colin Dealman. He's on the CPA board as an outreach person. Westminster High School is creating an innovation center, and Hetty, you might want to talk more about that. But it will emulate St. Vrain Valley School District's and Cherry Creek School District's innovation campus with their aviation focus. And as for fly-ins, Gallup, New Mexico is May 27th. Gunnison is in June. I'm not sure the date, but they were proud that 10 pilots had already signed up. Pueblo is July 19th, and they also want to do a visit to Oklahoma City FAA. That's tentative. Let's see, Mike Kolsniak with CPA Presents is offering a May 15th tour of Spartan College by the Broomfield Airport. And June 17th, the Gamma co-founder and head of engineering will speak here at CFL as part of CPA Presents. Let's see, where am I? In March, they did a Part 150 noise study, and in February, they did a wind turbine and airspace discussion with about 20 people attending. Community noise roundtables continue to happen, and there is a new backcountry fly-in representative named Keith Sirks with CPA, and CPA's next meeting is May 6th at Shelter. Colorado Aviation Business Association, also busy with House Bill 24. They wanted to point out 208 witnesses were at the May confirmation. And they have a golf tournament June 3rd up by Erie Airport at Colorado National Golf. Women in Aviation just went to a Women in Aviation conference. To meet some of your friends there. And Hetty was there, so that was really fun for us to hang out together. So Women in Aviation was very busy with that. They're holding a financial planning for aviators workshop soon, or they just did. And in just less than 1 year, they will be at Gaylord for the Women in Aviation Conference International at Gaylord. Yeah. In Orlando, they had 5,000 people.
wow.
Yes. So, yeah, Gaylord was actually there and kind of freaking out. Like, oh my gosh, we better build another hall. EAA, very busy. They work in conjunction with FAST teams and support a lot of the CPA events. Mark's very involved with EAA, but they continue to hold IFR and VMC clinics all across the Front Range quite often, every month. The 99s are getting really excited and have racers for the 2024 race class, ARC Classic Race Tournament. Oh, I'm not saying this right. The Air Race Classic ARC terminus is going to be at Fort Collins Leland Airport, June 21st. They're still looking for sponsors, just to make sure it's a really super awesome, sweet event. So pass that word. They're having a social, this is the 99s, the Colorado 99s. They're having a social on April 26th to support some of their ARC racers. Pancake breakfast the 27th here at this airport. And they're doing an air marking at Wings Over the Rockies exploration of flight. They're repainting that. And they're meeting about future poker runs. There's a poker run scheduled for September. They're gonna do that fly out in Ray at the Brew and Pew. And they had planned to attend the Pikes Peak Air Show, which is August 17th and 18th. A lot of pilots across Colorado, not just the 99s, of course, will be going to that. And there's also the Longmont September 14th Air Show. Melinda Jordan's very busy planning that out. So it's a couple of really good air shows for all of the Colorado pilots. Let's see. Wings Over the Rockies has an annual aviation career fair. That's on Saturday, May 11th. And the 99s will be there. The 99s also have a big event coming up in Vancouver, Washington, where they're gonna go and have fun in July. And then they're gonna have a picnic August 10th. Let's see. So Longmont Air Show, they're looking for sponsorships, volunteering, and donations or vendors at the Longmont Air and Space Show. I have the connection for that if anybody's interested in that. The Commemorative Air Force, this is exciting. Jeff Hinkle, who used to be the education chair for CPA, has stepped down from that, and now Michaela Gowler and a gentleman named Michael, I can't remember his last name, I'm sorry, have taken over that. But Jeff Hinkle gave a report on the Commemorative Air Force. The 1940s ball is coming up. That's on June 15th. Super fun at Boulder Airport. He hasn't said what aircraft are gonna be there, but he's really excited that the, let's see, it's called Commemorative Air Force Air Power History Tour is coming to BJC, and that's going to be August 21st through the 25th. And there's going to be the B-29 Super Fortress Fifi, the North American Texan T-6 Wasp Nella, a PT Thurman Stearman, and a P-51 Mustang called the Gunfighter is going to be there. And you can get tickets to ride in those. They range from $350 to $2,500. But you can sign up for that at airpowersquadron.org. And pretty exciting stuff. You want to give somebody a gift to go up and not one, but maybe all of those that day, that would be really exciting. The Winter White Christmas 1940s ball will be at Wings Over the Rockies on December 7th. Let's see, Nelson Wolfmeyer runs the FAA safety team for Colorado, and he has some seminars in April, May, and June. I actually was supposed to call him today and I forgot, so I don't have his information. But you can get fast team credits coming to the Prode event, which if you guys want to keep your eye out for this on social media, the Colorado Pilots Association website and whatnot. But speaking of fast team credits, Nelson's working on getting pilots fast team credits if they can get hypoxic. So this is the flyer that I've created with Wings Over the Rockies for the hypoxia chamber. This is what it looks like for those of you who haven't seen it. I should have given you a slide up on the board, but really awesome chamber. It's been here a couple times, it's coming again. So that's very exciting. The signups start in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from yesterday.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks from yesterday, the signups will start. I'm working with Brian Garrett at Colorado Pilots Association on getting that sign up going. Not only for the people who want to get hypoxic, you have to have a first, second, third class medical or a basic med and be 18 years old, but also for volunteers to come that day and sign up to volunteer. And Flightco has offered to feed the FAA guys, which is awesome. Eric Serrani said, yes, I'll feed those guys. That's awesome. Okay, let's move on from Civil Air Patrol. The Colorado Wing flew 279 hours in March. The 2023 totals for Colorado Civil Air Patrol were 1,326 hours. And so far in 2024, the cadet flights for Civil Air Patrol are 521, and that was the report given by Martin Kelly on April 1st. Colorado Aviation Historical Society held their spring meeting at Lowry Wings Over the Rockies on March 23rd, and I think they've hung some new Hall of Fame plaques, so you might want to check that out. Melissa Berg is Dave Kempa's daughter. She's the new VP for Colorado Aviation Historical Society, and they plan to be at the Longmont Air Show, and they want everybody to know that AVAR, what is AVAR? You've done the tours for AVAR.
Aviation archaeology.
Aviation archaeology is coming to Colorado
Oh, cool.
in September of 2025, next year. Almost done. Colorado Agricultural Aviation Association, they were just at Wings Over the Rockies having an event. Were you there? Did that have a great turnout?
I was at the tail end, so
Okay.
I couldn't tell.
Okay, all right. And the Seaplane Association, Ray Hawkins, is still waiting for a June, July session to work out a petition with Colorado Parks and Wildlife for creating some courses for GA pilots for seaplanes. And Angel Flight West, this is my second to last one, it's just, I'm almost done. Angel Flight West serves Colorado and 11 other western states. Currently, it has 277 volunteers in Colorado alone, and they're really excited because back in 2023, at the end of 2023, they celebrated their 100,000th mission. And one person alone flew 92 missions just in 2023. Yeah. And of the 180 command pilots who were in Colorado in 2023, they flew 169 missions for 189 passengers and their caregivers. So Angel Flight West is super great. On June 1st at Centennial, they're gonna have a 5K. It's called Run for the Angels. If you're interested in that, it's a great moneymaker. Their goal for that is to get some volunteer pilots, build awareness for the services that Angel Flight West provides, and raise funds for their programs. So if you're interested in attending that, you'll help them out. Colorado Airport Operators Association, they have their conference coming up June 5, 6, 7, 4, 5, 6 golf tournament on the 4th up in Vail. And let's see, Wings Over the Rockies had a Warbird showcase. They have their fly-ins every Saturday, first Saturday of every month. And like I said, they're hosting the winter ball. And they have a bazillion kids camps all summer long. Wings Over the Rockies, we're just so lucky to have them. Can't say enough. And that concludes my pilot organizations report. Thank you.
Trinity.
Yes.
Thank you, Trinity.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, on the western slope, I think I'll start big picture, is you have, I think every western slope airport, in 2023 enjoyed, increase in employments, so employments are rather robust. Durango celebrated, wing, ribbon cutting for their terminal expansion, and, Director Elaine, was there to attend that, so, congratulations to Tony and Bakari and his team on a remarkable accomplishment. And the community is absolutely ecstatic over their improvements. Locally at our airport, May 8th, we're going to host our triannual full-scale exercise for our airport certification in Telluride. And that week, we're doing that in association with a fire training. And what happens, Part 139 Fire brings in a simulator that meets all the 139 requirements. And we have, I think this is our 5th year, and we're gonna have Durango and Gunnison firefighters, as well as our own firefighters doing their live fire exercises. So if you wanna see something interesting, come on up to Telluride that week, and you wanna be a part of our looking for victims, that's for sure, for our mass casualty incident triangle exercise. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Katie.
Out on the Eastern Plains, it is construction everywhere. It's awesome to see all this construction happening. Basically, everybody I talked to for this report either has a project this year or working on the funding for next year, the years to come, it is amazing. I talked to Greg at Lyman there. You have a taxiway extension coming up. They've got more aircraft storage than they have taxi lanes, which is a good problem to have, but it's still a problem. So they're working on that. Talked to Randy. They're doing their ramp project next year. He wanted me to show you guys their appreciation for the crack field program. He said that they utilize it and they love it, and want to thank you guys for you CDOT folks for having that there. Let's see. Sterling's got the apron project. Talked to Luke at Lahana. They've got Pappy Lights coming in this year. Brett down in Springfield finally getting their ramp taxiway project bid. It's going to get bid next week. They're getting a new fuel system as far as like a card reader for their fuel system. Talked to Phil at Trinidad. They got the taxiway replacement coming this year, and they did receive approval from the FAA for non-aeronautical use for airport property. Like a industrial type thing. I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen, but a box, new watts at the box. It's a CrossFit talk. Anyway, talked to Greg at Pueblo, because the first thing, of course, I asked him is what's going on with the Reno air races. He said the official announcement's still a couple weeks away, but what he did say was they've come back to visit numerous times, and they've had some really good questions and a lot of good discussion with the organization. So he feels really good about what might happen. So really exciting. We're gonna find that out in a couple weeks probably, or early May sometime. So they're also got a big runway rehab project, and then they're removing a taxiway there that's kind of problematic, the Alpha 2 taxiway that I believe it intersects with the runways in a kind of a hotspot type of place. So that's getting rid of that. Dave at Meadow Lake got some pavement maintenance this year, and they've always got big plans for a runway in the future, but that's going to be a lot of zeros on that. So I'm not sure exactly how that's going to pay out. Burlington, we've got a lot of stuff going on this year. We got our taxiway project that's moving along.
Match, so excited about that, and excited about the continuing study, and looking ahead to our repaving on the runway. Just an interesting side note to the AI that you mentioned, Mark, from UAvionics. I just saw an article that I think we know that server farms are a huge draw on the electrical grid today. Well, the computing power required for AI dwarfs that of our normal server farms. And there's many states in the nation, Virginia, and Nevada, as I recall, Virginia's power requirements could double within the next 10 years or so because of all the AI plants. And these are so intense, and the computing power is so significant, they have to be liquid cooled.
Wow.
Compared to just the fans that run in a normal server farm. And I don't know if anyone's ever had the chance to go through a server farm, but it's a pretty humbling and interesting experience. That's all I have.
Cool.
Dave, Director's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things. Back in December, I think you all know that Governor Polis reappointed Trimby, Mark, and Steve to second terms on the Aeronautical Board. Normally, the confirmation hearings in the Senate Transportation Committee would have happened in January. Here we are, almost at the end of the session. They finally got scheduled this week, so you all get to go before the committee next Monday. So we'll get that knocked out. Sorry, that was a little bit late. So very happy to have all three of you continuing on the board for another 3 years. So very cool. Thank you. 2024 strategic plan. I'm looking out in the audience to a lot of folks there. You know, back in 2018, we started doing a division strategic plan with a 3-year update tempo. We last updated it in 2021, and now it's time to take a fresh look at it and see where we're going for the next 3 years. So we have once again started to work with airport management consulting group to help us facilitate that. And we'll be working with, of course, the division team, the CAB, the FAA, and all of our key aviation stakeholders, CAOA, Colorado Pilots, CABA, all the usual suspects to help us map out what they think we ought to be focused on. So later in the agenda, you'll see an agenda item for a small amount to reallocate some money within our budget to accommodate that to a different line item. So I'm excited to kick that off. Our goal is to have that for your review prior to the August meeting with formal adoption at the August CAB meeting. So plenty of time to do that, but not a full rewrite, just an update of where we've been. So we're excited about that. Secondly, I'd share that a few years ago, the National Association of State Aviation Officials, or NASAO, they developed and implemented an online training program for state aviation agency personnel. We're really lucky. Everybody on our team came from an aviation background, but nationally, that's not always the case. You get people moving from DOTs to aviation. It's really a cool training program, and during my time in NASAO leadership, we recognized that program could also have value for a lot of smaller airports that don't have access to some of the training resources that are really expensive or you've got to travel to. So long story short, NASAO rolled out earlier this year what they call the Airport Affiliate Program, where they're making the NASAO program available to states at the airport level for a small fee. We were excited to I was really bummed. I was no longer chair. I didn't get to be the first state. We didn't get to be the first state. My counterpart in North Dakota, who is the current chair of NASAO, they beat us by a couple of months. But we're the second state to take NASAO up on that airport affiliate program, and we're accommodating that within our existing budget. So far, we have 26 airports that have opted into this program, encompassing 133 airport employees, and we think that's going to continue to increase. Thanks to Melanie for helping us kick that off here in the last couple of months. We're really excited about that, but it's really cool. All 133 of those folks get training for only $3,200 a year, which is a pretty good value. So very cool to see that partnership. So we're excited to be rolling that out here starting this month. Very cool. And then lastly, we'll talk a little bit at the end about House Bill 24-1235, the Reduce Aviation Impacts on Surrounding Communities bill. I'll give you an update on that. But one of the very cool things that was in that bill at our suggestion was making it clear that CDAC funds can be used to help airports subsidize the cost difference between 100 low lead and unleaded avgas as we transition to a full approved, as you talked about, unleaded avgas. Thanks to Barbara at the AG's office for confirming check. Yes, we can allow that we use our money to do that. So that was good. So we are really excited to keep moving forward. We don't want to wait for the bill to pass. We're going to move forward with that. We think it's a great thing we can do to help facilitate that transition within our scope of work. So Todd and I and Kip yesterday met with Mike Fronefeld at Centennial Airport. The airport's been doing that locally for the last year or so. They're the only airport in Colorado that right now has any unleaded fuel available. So we're working to put together a 90-10 state local grant for your consideration in June that would cover that cost at Centennial for 1 year for roughly $300,000 or so. So we'll have some changes to our grant program we expect that will allow us to accommodate that without additional increase. So we're excited about that, to be proactive and do what we can to help facilitate that transition. And thanks to the team at Centennial for helping us map that out, how that's going to work logistically within our grant program to keep all the boxes ticking. So thanks for that. And that's all I have for my director's report. Sure.
Thank you, Dave. Let's go to the financial update. Bryce?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. As always, I'll go through these. Please feel free to stop me at any time if you have any questions. March revenue came in at 4.2 million, brings our year-to-date total to 41.9 million. Our current revenue forecast for the fiscal year is 57 million. It's the end of Q3. We always update that, but there's no need to. We are still tracking right along that 57 million number. So things are moving along as expected. That March revenue of 4.2 million was 91.7% of forecast, which was 4.5. In comparison, it's 19.5% less than March of 2023. Revenue of 5.3 million. The drop year over year is largely due to fuel prices being about 15% lower than they were at that time last year. And then March's revenue was 1.2% more than February. And then for April, forecast is 4.6. So forecasted to go up a little bit in revenue this month. Strong oil prices, they've been trending up lately, and continued strong fuel flow, specifically in Denver. Revenues are trending as expected for the most part. So they continue to be strong. Our cash balance, our Fund 160 balance finished March at 28.4 million, which is about a $730,000 increase from the 27.7 in February. That was expected. Again, revenues and expenses continue to follow expected trends. We do expect to have the cash balance increase to 29.2 million in April, just simply because we're expecting more tax revenues, and a little bit lighter March than forecast is going to be a little less disbursements. So we'll see a tick up there. Again, it is important to note that if we do transfer 2.5 million from the 160 to the SIB account, which we'll talk about, I think, the very next point, it'll affect the cash balance a little bit different, obviously, if that disappears. Probably will be reporting on that, why it's dropped down when we didn't call for that. So our tax disbursements by month, we sent out 2.7 million in March, 2.5 of which were sales tax related, 168,000 of Avjet and about 8,000 of Avgas disbursements. Back on the typical schedule, we had talked in the February report that was sent out why it was abnormal, and that's just catching Denver up for excise tax because they bounce all of it through the map through the year, so we just do it once a year with them. So it's not us giving them a big check and then having them cut us a big check and back and forth. So that's why February looks out of whack when you look at the graph there, but that is actually typical of how it flows. So everything else is following as expected. Our contingency analysis, again, our 2024 CDAG program is set at 16 million. As we look at that graph above there, we can see that all the way through 2025, our fiscal year 2025, I should specify, we basically have the cash on hand, the blue, that would fund our entire contingency balance, the red. That means the grant program that Todd and the team have for 2024, plus the one we tentatively have planned for 2025, are basically covered by our current cash balance, which is extremely healthy spot to be in. It allows us to be flexible with other spending requests that come up, basically having all that cash either on hand or already allocated. So things are good there. I did mention oil prices are up a little bit. When I published this, they were up around 90. They're mid 80s right now, which is trending back up from where they have been the last couple months. With everything going on in the world and summertime coming, we expect those probably will continue to trend up, and EIA has recognized that in the recent fuel forecast as well. So from the revenue standpoint, the increase in fuel price is a good thing, so we're in a good situation with that. Our admin expenses, mandated cap for the year is 3 million. Budget approved by the cap is 825,000. Currently, we have 562,000 spent on admin. I did mark down here, this is a little artificially high, as there was 56,000 from headquarter that was allocated to the admin account instead of publications. It was actually the directories. Interoffice or interagency transfers, they sometimes ignore the coding, so Todd has already done the journal entry. When you see this next month, it'll be smoothed out of there, but it just shows up on the graph here, so I better explain it. Current projection for the fiscal year is that we're gonna be at 608,000 for admin costs. That puts us exactly at 1% of FY23 revenue, well below the 5% statutory cap. So we continue to be very lean as it comes to our admin costs. Fuel flow at Denver. Flowage in Denver in March was 43.3 million gallons, the second highest March on record. It was up 10% from February's 39.2 million and down 3% from March 2023 numbers of 44.4 million. Down slightly from the forecasted number we had of 45.5, but the trend line, as you can see, was in line kind of with the normal expectations. For April, the forecast of flowage is 45.6 million gallons, which would be a 5% increase on March. That would line up with what the trend we saw in 2023, not in 2019. Historically, April has been the most volatile month as it pertains to following the trend line from March. As you can see on the graph there, it's been down, it's been up. We are projecting a slight increase this month, but April is often the one that is the most in flux. That number of 45.6 million would represent an all-time high in April fuel flow. As you can see on the graph there, that's a big spike potentially. So we will see how that shakes out, and then that obviously impacts where we're looking at moving forward. So Denver continues to pump a lot of fuel. And our final slide is our cash balance allocation. Closed March, like we said, at 28.4 million, with our planned program of 16 million. Balance might look high, but as of the end of March, only 1.25 million of that cash balance is unallocated towards what's upcoming both this fiscal year and next fiscal year. That number will continue to rise. Again, if we take money out, it might not as quickly, but it will continue to rise as we head into August, when we give the new plan as far as what we're gonna spend in 2025 on C-Day, and that's when it gets down. So it's following the normal cycle. We do expect it usually to be in the positive this time of year, and it is. So that's a good indication. Current cash balance, like I said, 28.4 million, 417,000 of which is forecasted for admin and building expenses still this fiscal year, 0.36 million in statewide initiatives, 6.1 million of CDAG spend still by the end of June. And then our future CDAG balance remaining after FY24 would be 19.275. Big chunk of that obviously is the 16 million this year. And then that leaves the 0.25 million in reserves that will continue to climb. And that is the end of the financial dashboards. Happy to answer any questions about any of them or anything not up there.
Thank you, Bryce.
Making it easy on me.
Let's move on to technical services budget amendment.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. We are seeking a motion to approve an additional $11,675 into our FY24 technical services budget. This is the fund we kind of set aside to fund miscellaneous professional and personal services that come up throughout the year. As Dave previously mentioned, in this case, we're not wanting to delay. We just want to get kicked off on the on the strategic plan, getting that updated. Previously, you had approved $25,000 for this cost center. Having worked with AMCG, the actual cost we're probably looking at here is $36,675 for a budget request. So we are seeking approval of an additional $11,675 technical services budget to be allocated this fiscal year. Happy to answer any questions on that.
Great. Would entertain a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Good. Motion passed. Great. Let's move on to item 7.3, Caitlin, administrative and amendment interim grant request updates.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is one that does not require action, but it includes multiple pots of money that you guys have previously approved for us to make administrative amendments to, so that we can go with the flow of things that are happening. There are two that need an extension on their term, one being Centennial for some SRE equipment because nothing is being built as quickly as it was pre-COVID, so that is still in process. Springfield, we did a design phase 1 construction grant in 2021. They're opening bids later this month, so we want to use as much of that as possible to pair with their 2024 grant so they can maximize the amount of state funding to pair with their local funding for their alpha and ramp reconstruction. Because if we're going to be in Springfield, we should probably get as much done as we possibly can because we don't know when we'll be able to get back out there. We have 4 supplemental funding requests. 3 of the 4 of them are federal or NIPIAS airports that are getting additional federal funds. We have pretty small incremental increases to match that additional federal funding. One of them is Astronaut Kent Rominger Airport in Del Norte, which it's a much bigger request at just under $400,000. We granted them a state and local grant in January for the runway. We did planning last year. This is the final lift on the runway that we were not able to do in 2008 when we built the runway. Final lift on the runway, we're doing a pavement maintenance R&D project on the previous runway, which is now the taxiway, and then some other pavement maintenance. They all originally had planned for some new taxi lanes and some electrical to a new spot to develop. Bids did not come in such that we could make that work. So they kind of repackaged the way that everything was sent out and have renegotiated with their construction, with the company that won the bid. And so we're gonna give $390. Del Norte is going to do their 10%, and we're gonna be able to get the runway and the 608H on the taxiway and some more pavement maintenance done. So they've been a wonderful partner in getting it done. They are very appreciative of the board's support of the airport and the west side of the valley, so they can continue to support their aviation in that part of the country. And then we have one intern from Durango. You approved an intern for Durango when we were in Burlington, and they want to do another one. So this will be their second of the year, and everything is in motion to get it going. We just, per the statewide initiative stuff, we told you we would tell you when there were new interns being contracted. So this is the second that Durango will have for the year. Any questions?
Thank you,
Okay,
Caitlin.
absolutely.
This has been an excellent tool for us, so we very much appreciate the board's approval of this concept a couple of years ago. It's allowing us to stay on track with a lot of these projects. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Great. Let's move on to 7.4, Bryce.
And that all segues perfectly into this. As Caitlin talks about there, the funds that are being used to supplement the grants that are out there, not changing scope, just getting the projects completed. This is really kind of the one cost center that we reset the amount on, I guess, every year. Normally, our budget is constantly appropriated. What we don't spend rolls over. We do adjust that out to match what you guys have approved. But we are seeking approval for $1 million for the FY 2025 Division Supplemental Fund. Again, that's part of the larger fund adjustment plan that we had approved back in 2022. It lets the staff administratively approve supplemental CDAG funding requests on a case-by-case basis and update you guys when we do have those adjustments. The request to set the funding of $1 million is really, instead of us kind of piecemealing throughout the year, we're pulling from here, we're pulling from here. It's getting us that funds ahead of time so we can report on that. If we do ever need to go over that, obviously we would get your approval first and foremost for that. But it's not accruing previous years unspent. That money that isn't spent that was in there this year is off the books. We start again at $1 million for next year, just so we can keep tight wraps on that program and keep you guys informed of that. So we are requesting $1 million in funding to be set aside budget-wise for required uses of the supplemental funding request.
Questions for Bryce?
I guess more of a statement is just that I think this is a really impressive example though of how you can be nimble. And just what we went through, that could have taken up months of time or more, and a whole lot of concern on our part probably, because we'd be trying to figure out all the details of those little bits and pieces, and yet it's done responsibly. So I guess with that statement, I just make a motion to approve the $1 million for the fiscal year 2025 for the division's administrative supplement fund.
Well said. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Very good. Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, last time you'll hear from me here, I think. This is a motion to approve sending $2.5 million from the Division's 160 fund to the SIB fund for immediate use. I know I referenced this in my dashboards. We mentioned it earlier here with the TC, but we're seeking CAB approval to move $2.5 million from the 160 fund, our normal operating fund, of which we closed March with $28.4 million in it, to the SIB account. The funds are earmarked for an SIB application from Durango, for which we currently don't have enough in SIB balance. We did brief you guys on this already back in December at the CAB meeting. It's a crucial component of funding for the airport's commercial terminal expansion, which is using a combination of federal, CDAG, and local funds. And then the timing of the availability of these funds and their construction schedule, as you can imagine, in Durango is challenging. And the staff has determined that this is the best way to ensure the project moves forward as intended, is using SIB. So as the business manager, I can confirm we have adequate funding on hand to do this transfer, with no current plans to return the funds to the 160 account without damaging our short or long-term fiscal outlook. It will have no material impact we have budgeted for this fiscal year or future 2025 program. Of note, important to note, if approved, this increases our total funding that we have sent to the SIB account from Fund 160 to $9.5 million. Those funds are able to be withdrawn from the account in the future, should we ever be required to do so. But with our current fiscal policies in place, we would have 24 months roughly before we would ever need to use those funds, which would allocate plenty of time for repayments of those should we ever need to use them. Don't anticipate that, but as we talked about kind of worst case planning, that gives us that mechanism should we ever need it. So we are looking for approval from the board to move 2.5 million from the 160 account to the SIB account. That would leave our 160 account with roughly $26 million.
Very good. We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Very good, motion passes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Board.
Great. Todd, how about we go to agenda item 8?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I am happy to present round 2 of the 2024 CDAG grant applications this year. So this round 2 consists of 29 federal match grant applications totaling, I have to find my number now, totaling $4,687,467. Normally, this grant hearing is purely for federal match, but as Bryce talked about in the money situation, it's gonna be a little bit different this time. So again, this round consists of actually 29 federal match projects. Correct. And I actually created a little handout for all of you as well, because this agenda item is going to be confusing. I will need 5 different motions as we go through this, and I'll explain why here shortly. So that first one, again, 29 applications, which was a very robust federal match program. It was actually, as of a few weeks ago, it was actually a little bit higher than that, but we had some federal projects fall out of the queue. And so we actually had to cut down that federal project a little bit. And so of the federal match program that totals 3.7 million, 2/3 of that went to go matching the AIP funding. And the last third was actually matching those bill funding that came to the state. And so what's pretty cool about this, that 3.7 million in state matching funds is helping to leverage $92 million in federal funds to actually complete just under $120 million worth of projects this year. So pretty robust program for our Fed match. And then when you add that to the program we approved back in January for the state and local program, it adds up to $15.1 million. So back in August, and what Bryce just talked about as well, you gave us approval to go up to $16 million and kind of gave us that push to, if you're approved up to $16 million, we'd like you to spend up to $16 million. And so when those federal projects kind of fell out for a little bit, we actually dug into the CIP a little bit to go see what projects were out there that we could help backfill that $900,000 gap that was created. And so we are actually bringing another state and local application before you today as well for the Grand Junction Regional Airport to help them purchase an ARF truck at that airport. So this was something we put on their CIP here 3 or 4 years ago in kind of those outer years, and they have always requested to try to move it up. It's kind of a critical need that they need. And so with this kind of shortfall, we were able to kind of pull that project directly into this year's program. And so along with these federal match projects, we will be requesting approval of a $900,000 state and local grant for Grand Junction as well. So, and I'll kind of give you an in total as well. And so now with the 2024 program, so what I just proposed, and then round 1, it would bring us to a $15.9 million. So I got as close as I could to 16 million. And then along with the local and federal funding, it'll account for just under $135 million worth of projects in the state here over the next few years. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have before I actually start getting into the motions themselves. Are there any questions?
Just one on the fire truck, and I might be
Absolutely.
going to this in a minute anyway, but 900,000 is for the grant.
Correct. So the total, the vehicle itself is just under $1.5 million. And so we kind of talked with the airport, and what we had been planning on was a $900,000 grant for this actually out in future years. And they actually needed a larger truck than planned for, and so that's where that larger amount actually came from. I believe it'll be an Index C truck for the airport, and so they're actually bringing an additional $590,000 to this project as well to make sure it happens. So thank you for bringing that up. This one's not one of those 90/10s. This is where they are bringing a hefty chunk to make sure they get this vehicle as well. But I believe they were pretty happy when Scott called up and said, hey, we can do this if you're able to take it. And so they kind of jumped on board.
So I may have a question, maybe Angela can answer. I'm sorry, I didn't think to ask this before, but as you mentioned, the transition to fluorine-free foam.
Oh, yeah.
Does the airport intend to make this a fluorine-free foam truck from the outset, do you know, or should we ask Angela when she's on later?
Angela is on if she would like to speak, it looks like here.
Sure. I'm sorry, Todd, I know you can cover, but yes, we do intend to keep this fluorine free, and we're really excited about that fact and that ability. That is a simple way for us to move in that direction. So thank you.
Cool. Probably
Thank
the
you.
cleanest way
There you
to
go.
transition
Yeah,
to
exactly.
fluorine-free foam.
Excellent.
So it was just a really great option to be able to add in another grant and actually get a very critical project done. And with these, it's actually great that we're able to do it now because it does take a few years to actually get that vehicle at the airport ready to go. So, all right, are there any additional questions before I actually start working on the motions? Okay, so we'll kind of jump to this because there are a couple of airports that may have a conflict of interest with some board members. I will actually be requesting a motion to approve 27 federal match grant applications totaling $3,527,640.
So moved.
Second.
Great, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it.
Perfect, thank you. And then the next one, we're actually pulling out one of those, of the 29, we're pulling out a couple of those to talk about individually. So the first one, 8.1.1, is a grant application from Burlington Kit Carson County Airport, which Daniel may know where that is. And they have one project where they are looking to do a taxiway alpha reconstruction project, and there's also a pavement maintenance project totaling $217,777. And so I would be looking for a motion to approve the federal match grant application for the Burlington Kit Carson County Airport totaling $217,777.
So moved.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second. We have one abstention. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
And the second one for individual consideration is for the Colorado Air and Spaceport to do a taxi lane rehabilitation. So for this, I would be looking for a motion to approve the federal match grant application for the Colorado Air and Spaceport totaling $42,050.
So moved.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you. And then 8.2, and the reason I actually pulled out this state and local application with Grand Junction to do separate action on is because normally with our state and local grant applications, we actually present them at the meeting prior, so you guys can ask questions about them. So I wanted to make sure that if there was any questions, we could make sure those are taken care of prior, so we had a few on it. And so with this one, I am looking for a motion to approve the state and local grant application for the Grand Junction Regional Airport totaling $900,000.
Make that motion.
Yes.
We have a motion
I'll second.
and a second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you. And so with all of those different motions, we have to combine them all into one. So with this, I am presenting CAB Resolution 2024-03. And this authorizes really this entire second round. So all 29 of those federal match applications and that one state and local application. So with this, I am looking for a motion to approve CAB Resolution 2024-03, which authorizes the second round of the 2024 Colorado Discretionary Aviation Grant applications, totaling $4,687,467.
So why do they not have to be combined into one, since we already approved the other ones individually?
So with the resolution itself, because that's actually what truly authorizes them, so, and then we actually have to send this list to the governor. the governor's office, and that's where that approval comes together. We send the whole
Trying to
resolution.
make it easy on you.
Oh, yes, that's why I actually had to print out a long list of motions. So,
Got it.
but yes, that is what's behind the scenes. It makes it much cleaner to go to the governor's office following this approval.
Good catch, yes, that's a great question.
So moved.
Seconded.
Very good. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Perfect, thank you very much, and sorry for the confusion on that. It's always a little messy to make sure we get it done right.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Number 9?
And I forgot I'm running the slideshow for everybody online, so I will catch you all up. And I believe, Sean, did I have the map in there as well?
Yeah.
I forgot to talk about the map. We're gonna talk about the map, even though we just approved it. This is a very cool map showing where all of that funding for all of 2024 went. It is all corners of the state. Caitlin talked about the grant down in Springfield all the way up to Rangeley. So again, this is a very cool representation of kind of spreading that money throughout the state. So again, one of my favorite maps, just kind of explaining where everything is.
I'm glad you didn't let go of waste.
Oh, right, I had to get back to it. Sorry, I'm doing too many things at once, including looking who's online.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
can I just for everyone out in Zoom land, I just have one housekeeping thing. We're having some problems with Zoom, as obvious. The meeting is going to end abruptly in 5 minutes. Stay on and I'll start right back up. So that's what's happening. Just stick around. Thanks.
Okay, we will go to the next agenda item. So this one, another exciting thing to bring up here, and actually, Kenny brought up a very good piece of this that he will be doing here later this year. But the Division of Aeronautics has a new one-time statewide initiative we're proposing today. Back in 2021, during our update to our division strategic plan, one of the objectives in that was try to help support smaller commercial service airports and GA airports in making sure all of their ARF personnel continue to be certified and ready to respond to aircraft fires. So we've kind of been working through that time period. We haven't been able to do a lot through those few years up until recently, where the Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control submitted and was received an award from the Federal Emergency Management Agency Assistance to Firefighters Grant. They got a $500,000 grant from FEMA to purchase a aircraft rescue firefighting simulator. So similar to what Kenny's gonna do here, I believe on May 8th, I believe it was. So the Division of Fire Prevention and Control will actually own and operate this piece of equipment and kind of move it around the state and kind of regional trainings and be able to use that to make sure that those local firefighters know how to do this. It really became an issue for airports to try to get all of their staff recertified, because in order to get your ARF certification, it is a 40-hour class, and then you are required to do a live burn. And so most of those have to go to large fire pits somewhere located throughout the country, and there are less and less pits available. And it is very expensive to be able to do that. And then on a recurring process, you do have to do some continuing education along with a live fire exercise. And so this prop would allow for that to take place. So following that grant award, they also reached out to airports, specific airports around the state, including Kenny's up in Telluride and the Loveland Fort Collins Airport, to make sure that this prop was going to meet the needs of really all those airports out there to be able to use it. And so through those conversations, it was also determined that they need to purchase a high wing simulator along with an auxiliary power unit simulator as well that can be actually attached directly to this prop. And so with all of that added all together, along with some warranty included, the piece of equipment came to just under $660,000 for the purchase. And so they were able to get that $500,000 grant, and then the Division of Fire Prevention and Control also had $75,000 to match that. And due to our relationships, they kind of reached out to us and they're like, would it be possible to partner with the Division of Aeronautics on the purchase of this piece of equipment? And again, I am a firefighter. I have my ARF certificate. It's definitely not current anymore, so I was really excited about this too. But the biggest question is, can we give money literally to another division of the state and not actually own anything? We're literally just giving their money to purchase a piece of equipment. And so we worked with the AG's office and they were able to clear that with us, that yes, this is a legal transfer of funds to be able to do this through a partnering effort. effort. So they need an additional $84,890,000 to put this piece of equipment into use. There are a few things still to be hammered out as to make sure everybody gets trained up on their side to be able to run this safely. But at this point, I'd be happy to answer any question before I actually ask for the motion.
Is this piece of equipment something that a small rural volunteer fire department could use that have no ARF training to familiarize themselves with ARF procedures?
That is the absolute hope for this, is that yes, this will be a
As well as the larger GA airports like Centennial, BJC, some of those airports would probably love to have that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and Centennial has their own pit now, and so if they want to do a multi-aircraft situation, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do with a mobile trailer like this.
And kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, it will be available to large airports too.
So if I was to have a barbecue and we wanted firefighters,
Okay. Seriously though,
do I have to abstain now? Barbara?
I tried to get a hold of you when I saw this on the agenda, just to get a couple of questions answered, but we recently did our full-scale exercise,
Yes.
and it was a pain trying to get some prop. This kind of a prop, we wouldn't need for our training purposes to certify, but we would need it for, on occasion, things like a full-scale exercise.
I'm sure dealing with ARF trucks, and I think that problem is going to get a lot worse as more and more airports are purchasing new trucks to help with PFAS. I'll just get going on my presentation and we can catch up on the slides once we have those. Grand Junction, things are going really well. Last year was almost a record-breaking year for us in many ways. One of the busiest years we've ever had in terms of passenger traffic. For only the third time ever, we had more than 500,000 commercial passengers. We hosted the first air show since the pandemic. Dave came out for that. Thanks, Dave. And we had so much fun. We had over 30,000 attendees. So when it comes to aviation and ways that we at the airport can impact aviation, air shows just have this exponential return on investment is my perspective. I mean, we hear about it for years to come in the community, and it's so fun, especially to watch the kids, including Davey Lane, just kidding. No, but everyone turns into a kid in their show. It's so fun. So we hosted the Blue Angels, had a blast. We also had the biggest construction year we've had since the terminal was built in 1982. So we did almost $30 million in construction, and that will be our new normal for a while until the new runway is built. So we have a lot going on, but we're really excited too to be thinking more broadly. We've finished an airport development plan update. That's a made-up term that we came up with to define basically a master plan update that excluded all the master plan components that had already been done as part of the runway replacement project. And actually, I want to call out a couple of people who are on the call or in person. I think Scott Carey is there, although I can't see him. And Bill Poole is on the line. This runway replacement project has been like 20 years in the making. I mean, I think Bill Poole came up with the idea. Bill Poole works at Denver International Airport and has for a long time, but that's how long this idea has been in the works, and it's fun that that idea is now a project and we're now knee deep in it. Right now we have a temporarily displaced threshold. Our runway is only about 7,500 feet right now while we move nav aids, mostly temporary nav aid movements. Virtually all of them are impacted. And we're getting really into the meaty part of the project. You know, the sub base, the full sub base is out for bid right now. And we're finally almost done moving dirt. I'm really excited for that part to be over. In the words of my wise 4-year-old, they scoop it and they dump it, and they scoop it and they dump it. And they have been for a year and a half, and we're still only 3/4 of the way there. So, okay. Well, we skipped over the first slide, which had the pretty picture from the air show. And Dave, you might have even taken this and sent it to us, but it was really fun to have the Blue Angels and many
Wish I
other.
could take credit for it. It's cool. Not my picture, sorry.
Okay, well,
Oh, that's a nice one.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's cool.
so it was really fun. All right, click. Awkwardness is my jam, so I'm good with this. We are one of only 4 airport authorities in the state. Telluride's another one, Centennial, and then Weld County is the 4th. And last year, as this board I think knows, we worked together to successfully update the state statute that governs airport authorities, which has been really beneficial at our airport and at some of the others. I think this is our board. These members are appointed by the city and county here in Grand Junction, Mesa County. Next slide. Click. Thank you so much for funding the economic impact study every year or every 5 years, because this is an important tool that we use to quantify what an economic pillar we are in the community. And, you know, really appreciate that work is underway again. I've only been here for one other iteration, but this version seems even more efficient than the last. We're really excited to see the results, but, you know, our team really rallies around the fact that, we are stewards of an important economic asset that, you know, contributes hundreds of millions of dollars to our local economy every year, and it motivates us to do our very best work. Click. I think I already mentioned most of this, so we can zoom on past, and this will be covered in other parts of the presentation. My plan is to give a quick air service update, not because I'm, you know, just passionate about the airline side of the house, but because for us, the commercial side really funds much of the work we do at the airport, and it's the way that we impact the most people in a direct way. And then we'll talk in more detail about our capital improvement plan and answer any questions. Grand Junction has been getting lots of positive and big recognition in national media. It's really fun that people outside of just Colorado have awareness of where we are now. When I started here 6.5 years ago and would meet with airlines, I would have to make sure that there was a map pretty early in my presentation so that they knew where Grand Junction was, because we're not Grand Rapids, we're not in Iowa, we're not anywhere we're in except in Western Colorado. So really fun, and, you know, really demonstrates what a team sport to airports and air service development is. As you guys know, the pandemic was terrible in every way, including in aviation. And, you know, it just cut deeper than any other shock we've seen. Obviously on a domestic scale, if we measure it just in passenger traffic, we're fully recovered, but that passenger traffic is distributed differently. And I think in Colorado, you know, we get to look at a lot of different examples of that. So click. What that looks like is larger airports, you know, are fully recovered to those pre-pandemic levels, and some of them, including Denver, thank goodness, are much larger than they were pre-pandemic. And that, if you measure it in seats or passengers, but here we're just looking at seats. When you look at smaller airports, on average, smaller airports have lost a lot of service, and all of that makes sense when you think about the pilot challenges and the fact that, you know, the pilot challenges really accelerated the upgauging of aircraft. And so you have more passengers being flown on fewer aircraft. And, you know, that shows up in the larger hub numbers of, you know, same number of passengers, fewer departures. The airfield planners probably love it. For smaller airports, it means there's more winners and losers. If you can have those larger aircraft, then your numbers, you know, look a lot better than those airports that haven't been so lucky. In Grand Junction, last year, our seats were down about 5% versus pre-pandemic, but our passenger traffic was almost right at our 2019 levels. So fortunately, our loads were a little higher and things look really good. But when you look, you know, our departures are, on average, are way down for small airports. Grand Junction's included in that. And the passenger traffic has only kept up because of those larger aircraft, which I'll talk a bit more about. Click. Grand Junction is a destination surrounded by destinations. I think this board knows that, but I just think it's fun to think about for a moment. There are 6 national parks within a 3-hour drive. There's 5 within a 2-hour drive. We're truly a destination surrounded by destinations. When you look at those visitation numbers, they're just massive. When you look at average daily visitation in July of last year. And we feel good about those numbers because things have leveled out. So we think there's a lot of opportunity to convert drivers to flyers, have them use our airport. You know, on average, we see about 60 people per day go to Moab. That's great. That's pulling, Utah visitors into Colorado and helping them have Colorado be part of that trip. We expect 2024 to be a top year. Our goal is that it'll be our busiest year ever, and we're certainly on track for that. Just got Q1 passenger numbers back, and it was our busiest first quarter ever. I'm a data person, so I believe in honesty and data. This Q1 had an extra day in it, so that helped, but it wasn't the only thing that pushed us over. We expect the rest of the year to look great as well. Here, I think you can see that historically we've had some seasonality when it comes to how many seats, and we use seats to measure supply. We've had some seasonality with summer being busier and the winter being slower. We've worked really hard to actually level out some of that seasonality and really fill those winter months where we had less service, because we're a market that has substantial tourism, but we also just have a growing and vibrant business community. We have virtually all the healthcare between Denver and Salt Lake City. I mean, year-round access to reliable hub connectivity in particular is really important for us. And so that's what you see on the right-hand side of the screen, is that patterns mellowing out a little bit. Still see some peaks into the summer, and most of that is actually ultra-low-cost carrier driven, which is very good for our market and helps put down pressure on fares. Click. Our growth is absolutely driven by the growth of United Airlines in our market, though. We've seen them grow substantially. Their seats for the first half of 2024 are up 130% versus 2018, and up 35% versus last year. They have 2 daily narrow body jets that serve, so 2 of their 5 daily flights to Denver are on narrow body jets now. And those have been full. So their load factors have consistently been in the 80s, even as they're adding all this capacity. It's fantastic. I mean, I haven't seen this headline, so I don't know this to be a fact, but I'm willing to go out there and guess that United Airlines is the largest private employer in Colorado. And so it's really fun to see, the connectivity to our hub in Denver grow, to the capital, and to see the success of such a strong supporter of the Colorado economy in United Airlines. Click. So just to paint a picture, we have nonstop service to 7 destinations this summer. We were thrilled to welcome Breeze to Colorado. Thank you to Dave and the aeronautics team for helping us welcome them. Governor Polis and Director Liu were able to make it out as well for that celebration. They'll start nonstop service to San Francisco in May. That'll be the first time ever that we have nonstop service to San Francisco. We continue to have service on Allegiant to Las Vegas and Los Angeles, and then we have our strong hub connectivity to Denver on United, and then the Dallas and Phoenix hubs on American. Good. We look at nonstop destinations and, kind of those dots on the map, but, our goals are really focused on those one-stop connections and really making sure that we have a robust network for our passengers to use. And that's what's great about being connected to the Denver, Dallas, and Phoenix hubs. There are almost 200 domestic destinations you can get to from Grand Junction this summer with only one stop. There aren't many more than 200 commercial airports with service right now this summer. So we're really proud of that, and a growing number of international destinations. Those are the unique one-stop destinations. That's why, those bullet points below don't add up to 191. I'm sometimes bad at math, but this isn't one of those instances. Click. It's really hard to even show on a map what that connectivity looks like, and I'm proud of that. We want to make sure there's good connectivity from our airport. The area where we have the worst connectivity, to use that term, is the Northwest. Delta suspended service in January of 2022. That service has not resumed yet. They previously provided 3 or 4 daily flights to Salt Lake City. That's a Western hub for them, and that it really provides great connectivity into that area of the US. We're eager to fill that gap, but that just hasn't happened yet. But otherwise, really proud of this map. Other airports in the region, you know, those mountain airports, those airports that support ski resorts, there's a lot of seasonality in the service they see. So what you see here are just published schedules for March, June, and September this year. On the left, you see seats, and on the right, you see flights. You can see seats really peak in that March period, really in the first quarter at those airports. And then, you know, they fall off for those other months. When you look at flights are slightly less, less peaky, if you will. And that's simply because, those destinations that are further away, they're obviously flying larger aircraft. So there's a whole bunch of seats on those single flights. But you look at Grand Junction, Durango, we have similar seasonal patterns. We peak slightly in the summer, not by a lot, but our communities, they're not resort communities. They're not but they're not primarily tourism-based economies. And so our communities rely on us to provide year-round access, and that's what you see. We measure leakage at the airport. I think this is something that is fun to look at, for the broader region. When I first came to Grand Junction at the beginning of 2018, it was remarkable to me how many travelers drove to Denver just to get more nonstop flights and for lower fares. That's what you see in the blue bars, those big blue bars. The pandemic hit and passengers stopped flying, and so we stopped leaking travelers. But as we've recovered, we're really proud of how many passengers we've been able to retain, and how that leakage problem hasn't returned in the same way it was. And so what you see is in Q1, we have the most leakage in Q1, and that directly corresponds to the extra service that we see at airports like Montrose, at Eagle, at Aspen. And so what we see is our travelers sometimes going to those airports instead to capture usually nonstop flights as we track that. But I just think this is a really good news story for Colorado. Those blue bars, they represent extra passengers on I-70 going, completely across the mountain range. No one needs that. I think the I-70 problem is a hard problem to solve. These are drops in a bucket, but that bucket is overflowing. So really glad to see that we're keeping more passengers on the Western Slope. As Western Slope is growing, there's absolutely enough demand to support growing airline service. And so it's really fun to just be part of that and keeping the Western Slope passengers, from going through the tunnel. Any questions on air service before I skip ahead? Okay. All right, I mentioned the CIP, it's huge. We are so fortunate that, we've brought in over $93 million in total in grant funding since 2018. Most of that is for capital, some of it certainly for operational help during the pandemic. We also have received a grant for some air service development stuff, but ultimately, you see a lot of grant funding flowing into the airport, and I want to kind of paint a picture as to what that will look like we expect in the future, and also just the scale and the why all of that funding is needed, and the airport can't fund it on our own. So what you see here is our funding plan. This is just for the airfield. This doesn't include our terminal and air traffic control tower plans. That's where we plan to use our bill entitlements, airport improvement grants. I don't know what we're calling them, but we have about $11 million in those grants that we're using on different projects. That's not showing up here. This is just airfield. So you see in 2024, we expect, based on our CIP with CDOT and the FAA, that we'll have about a $25 million a year, and that trend will just continue because that's how much it will take to get that runway open. Thank you again for the funding for the ARF truck. We are thrilled about that, and it's a huge relief. So you see that CDOT red bar, much thicker in 2024 than future years. Otherwise, that's just showing the $250,000 match that you provide, and it helps because you can see the blue bars are big, but the green bars are really big for us. And click. That's because we're an airport where our net operating income is about $2 million a year. So when you think about, those $20 to $30 million years for the capital improvement program, all of our cash goes towards that. And so the only way to build a new runway is with that, that grant funding. And it's really hard for us to fund other projects at the airport. And I can't say enough good things about our partners at CDOT because they've just helped us figure out how to solve so many of our problems, including, and actually I'll get to this when it comes to 422, but our SIB loan and 422 last year were huge. So this shows all of the work that is either done or underway. And really what showed up on that funding plan that you saw before. So last year we were able to fully rehabilitate our secondary runway 422, thanks to the generous grant from you all. That has been tremendous for our general aviation community. They are so grateful. The work turned out fantastic. And it's so nice to have that. Something I didn't think through all the way when we were planning this project is just how beneficial it would be as we start to impact in more significant ways our existing primary runway. So right now we have our threshold is temporarily displaced. Our runway is only 7,500 feet long right now, while we move nav aids and just have all sorts of impacts. And it's just really nice to have a second runway that's dependable and high quality, if you will, and the safety enhancements. We were also able to rehabilitate the taxiway there and expand our public parking lot. We relocated our employee parking, and that was all done using SIB loan funding. So what you see here is really that work that we already have planned, and that $200 million airfield CIP we talk about, that's all shown here. Click. Remember I said they scoop it, they dump it. Well, that is what used to happen in the middle of this picture that you see here. Now the project continues to move on, and what you see is the colors here, they line up because on the right-hand side, which is east side on the airport, that's where they're taking cuts. And then on the left side, that's where that cut, corresponds to fill, where we have just a huge area that continues to needed to be filled. So they scoop it and they drive and they dump it now. So those haul routes, some of those haul routes are about 2 miles long. But it's really nice to be getting to the end of the dirt work phase of the project. It's enough dirt to fill a Pepsi Center. Oh, we don't call it that anymore. It's the ball arena 8 times. So lots and lots of dirt, but finally we're getting to the paving portion. It's really fun. Click. It's impossible to show in pictures what this work looks like, but this project, the dirt work has all been completed or, contracted with Kelly Trucking. That's a Colorado-based company. So when you think about all of the money that's being spent on this project, it's being kept in Colorado too, most of it with Colorado-based companies. There have been times on this project where they've had almost 20 D11 bulldozers out here that scrape. The bulldozer's job is to push the scraper out when it gets stuck on purpose so the buckets are filled. It's a really cool, fun project. If you guys are out here anytime, feel free to stop by. We'd love to take you out there. Click. Already talked about the runway 422 rehab, but really can't emphasize, what a successful project that was. And thank you all for your partnership. I think that project finished just under budget. So write that down. I doubt there are many projects last year where you get to say that. We didn't have very many, but just really appreciated the collaboration that went into making this project a reality, and we're really, really proud of it. Like I said, we expanded our parking. It looks like a parking lot and it works like a parking lot. We're happy about that. We're right now, and I want to, shift gears into the terminal a little bit in the air traffic control tower. We're in the process of just completing some long overdue maintenance work. So in our initial project with the first couple of years of our AIG funding, and then thank you for the corresponding match help for those projects, is really to replace our two oldest passenger boarding bridges. So those bridges are way past their useful life. Those are due loading bridges. They've been out of business, I think, for 15 years. My staff calls them do not bridges. We have a lot of problems with them. And we're really excited to bring things up to code and provide a better passenger experience, and also just have something that better meets the fleet mix that airlines have now versus when those were installed. We're doing some life safety upgrades, and much of that work is actually in preparation of terminal expansion and what we anticipate we'll need to allow that to happen. I mentioned that we completed an airport development plan, our made up term for our master plan update. That was really focused on, really the areas outside of the main runway. What you see here is the renderings of full terminal expansion. If we were, basically 25 years from now, to paint a picture, the beige kind of triangle fan roof building, that's our existing terminal, and everything else is new. And so really fun for us to get to think about the picture of what the airport will look like. The runway project is huge. It casts a long shadow, but we're in a spot now where when we look 10 years into the future, that runway project's done. And so we want to make sure that, we don't find ourselves on our heels. I'm someone who believes in offense as the best form of defense, and I don't want us to get behind. What you see here is, really the rendering of all the development we'd like to see over the next 20 years at the airport. Building new hangars, everything grayed out obviously already exists, and everything in color is either underway, construction that's underway, or work that we'd like to see done. So really excited to be moving forward with some other projects and finding ways to really take our ideas and turn them into projects, to quote Director Liu.
Great, thank you, Angela. Any questions? We're excited to see all the good work going on, and sure appreciate the report.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. All right, let's go to item 12, Hetty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. As you know, the Aviation Education and Workforce Development Grant Program opened up on March 1st. It closes on, oh wow. You kept that one in your back pocket. It closes on May 1st, so that's just under 2 weeks away, which is really surprising to me. We did hold a webinar. We didn't have a lot of people show for that, but we do have it available and accessible on the website. So if you know of anyone who is interested, please go to that webinar. We also have the manual on there as well, which gives a lot of information about the grants and the program itself. We attended and participated in 9 unique events since the last CAB meeting, one of which was the Public Safety Day at Wings Over the Rockies, which is where you see our friend Sean Sutterberg with the teeny tiny little fireman's hat from South Metro. But he did give a wonderful presentation on the importance of the Colorado airport system and how it helps with public access to a lot of our communities. Let's see, we have a lot of events coming out. It's kind of ramping up to be a super busy year. We already have events that are kind of doubled up on days, but actually here at CFO, They are having 3 pancake breakfast fly-ins celebrating their 40 years of existence as FTG CFO. I don't remember what it was before that, Dave does. So that's coming up here quickly on the 27th of April, and then they have another one on May 25th and then June 29th. So lots of exciting stuff. That's it.
Great. Thank you, Hetty. Economic impact update.
I'll do that, Mr. Chair, since Scott is absent today. Again, very short. That process is still going on very well. We're in data collection, tenant survey mode right now, and we're just doing that part. So that's all there is to it right now. The written report was in your packet. We'll continue to do that every month as that moves forward.
Thank you, Dave. Scott?
Hello, Scott Carey, National Renewable Energy Laboratory, NREL. Sean, thanks for putting this up. We'll go quick. So you've heard we're working on the study looking across the state, gathered a lot of information around what's occurring in terms of modernization of aircraft, primarily that impacts more of the state than just typical commercial service airports. We're currently in the middle of running a couple electrical analysis type of studies around economics and availability and the need for power in different locations through 2 different tools we have. Thanks to the airports, we've had 12 airports that we've gathered data from around flight school information, power, different things. And shout out to Grand Junction, Durango, La Plata right now. They're both helping. Their utilities are coming in with better info to give some better detail. So next slide. Okay, we're gonna do this quick. We've got a lot of good financials. This is not financial, and this is not a grant. So, and those are all really important. This is another layer. We're gonna show you a quick look at kind of some of the early results of what's coming out of these efforts, which is Oklahoma City. It's easy to start by saying just here's a battery, but there are other options too.
Scott, I've got a question. So the part of that that's allocated to grid power, of the study airports that we've looked at so far, how many of those airports have grid power to the airport that would support that demand as shown there?
I don't know the exact answer, but I have the answer I think is, which is none.
That's, so, yeah. Sorry, that was a kind of a leading question.
I'm fairly certain it's none.
Okay.
So Scott, your presentation with your partner at CAOA really got me kind of excited because one of the slides that you were showing, or a couple of the slides you showed, were the number of chargers needed. You know, it wasn't what you would think. I mean, it was how you capacitize, don't over capacitize, right. You know, because it comes in and so it's a pragmatic way of looking at this, I think, for airports, but you know, it's just like this. So
Thank you.
What you're doing is really, you know,
One quick industry update while we're talking through that. Like we talked to a different aircraft OEM, it seems like every week is what it feels like. We got asked on one of our recent studies, like, why'd you look at this amount of capacity? And because they're starting to deploy chargers already, some of these manufacturers said, well, you're gonna get that charger in, you're gonna get aircraft in service in 3 years. And the time to get to where you really wanna run these plants you're building, now you need to start planning right now for that.
right.
And the light kind of went on, go, okay, now we see why you went that far out in this plan. So one charger is not the issue in most places.
But 4 isn't the solution either. That's overkill.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Other questions? Oh, you can go through these, but you don't need to. When they're looking for time, these slides are available. We can go into as much detail as you want, I promise. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
It's great.
Thank you.
Mr. Payne?
Hey, since I'm batting cleanup, I'll do this quick.
Did someone mention you're the last thing between us and happy hour?
Yes. That was made abundantly clear to me. Well, I'll go quickly through this. NextGen sent us a letter, they sent Dave a letter along with a list of what they thought that our funding purchased I asked them to do that so we know what equipment we can keep. Left out of that, obviously, was the SARS. Now, they sent a compilation of some of the budgetary things that they went through. It should actually start out once upon a time, because as I said in one of my reports, the funding we gave them was fungible. And they chose to say, okay, you didn't purchase this, but you did purchase this. And my position is, no, we want to keep that radar up there, because when Frequentis and Raytheon or RTX come up there, we need that piece of equipment. I've poked them a little bit. I wrote a little paper for Aviation Week that explains some of the things. I've gotten some comments on it. The next thing is Frequentis has already started putting equipment in at the tech center. They'll start testing at the end probably of they're thinking June, somewhere in there. So that's moving along fairly quickly. Next week, Dave and I will be on a phone call with them meaning Raytheon and Frequentis, to discuss where everything is at this point. Next thing is they will be at CAOA, Frequentis and Raytheon, to give us an update at CAOA. So if there are any questions, I'll take them. If not, I will let you have it.
So Frequentis and Raytheon, their interest has not wavered.
Oh, no, it
It's
hasn't.
gone the other way, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's the big thing, is they're sitting here jumping, up and down to come in here. Part of on the letter that was written, one of the things I wanted the FAA to put in there was that they were going to support Raytheon Frequentis coming to FNL. I couldn't get them to do that. They had some lawyer said something, I don't know what it was. Anyway, all right, if there are any questions, comments, dirty stories, whatever. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, let's go to legislative issues, Dave.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things. I think obviously the one that we've all been tracking pretty diligently over the last many weeks is House Bill 24-1235 on reducing aviation impact on communities. As you all know, that bill has been amended significantly from its initial iteration, which was really not great for airports. It wasn't great for us. But I think we're all in a good spot now. As you all know, that bill has continued to move forward. I think one of the things that we are going to be tasked with, that we're going to have to, as a team, the bill tasked the division with determining which communities are impacted by general aviation activity. And that in turn triggers whether an airport has to have a noise abatement program that they submit to us to have on file. We don't approve it or anything, to get a grant and some other things. It also dictates where the two new board members come from, because they come from those communities. So it puts us in a little bit of an interesting spot of defining where the two new board members come from. And I think if it doesn't give a lot of guidance on what significantly impacted means. So that's a double-edged sword. So we're going to have some conversations with you all and with the governor's office and the boards and commission people that appoint you all to how we do that. I think when you look at impact, it doesn't say negatively, it just says impacted. That could include airports like Aspen or Rifle or maybe even Telluride. Certainly the airports on the Front Range. The problem is if we do that, to broaden the net for two new board members, we broaden the net for airports that have to do extra work to get a grant from us. Now, I don't know that that's all that heavy of a lift, but we're going to have conversations with some of these airports to make sure we're meeting the intent of the bill, which is ultimately what we're responsible for doing. But so it's going to be an interesting little bit. The bill did pass out of the House yesterday. It's now on its way to the Senate. It's not been introduced yet for consideration as of 15 minutes ago, assuming the website's up to date. But we expect that to move pretty quickly through. It'll first get assigned to Senate Transportation likely early next week, but the deadline for final bill consideration is coming up at the end of April. So we're getting down to the wire. Session adjourns May 8th. So that's kind of the latest on that bill. I'll keep you posted as I hear that, we'll see how that goes. A couple of other things have changed since I sent out my director's report, and one that I know that impacted Denver, that was actually called Denver Airport Accessibility, House Bill 241165. That bill has been allowed to die, and I found out a couple of days ago, a replacement bill, House Bill 1452, was introduced to sort of take that place of that bill. The original bill imposed some requirements on our division to enforce that, which we had some problems with, and we articulated that. The new version of the bill does not do it. It does not call it Denver Airport Accessibility. It just calls it Airport Accessibility, but it's crafted to only apply to FAA designated large hub airports. Well, guess how many of those there are in the state of Colorado? So we don't have a dog in that fight, is my story anymore. It doesn't have any relative action to CDOT or to our division, so we'll let you and your team fight whatever fight you need to do on that bill, but that one is pretty much down by the wayside, so we're down to just that one bill that we're tracking for the rest of the session. So we'll keep you posted how that moves through, and that's my legislative update. Nothing new exciting on FAA reauthorization. They're still hung up on a lot of other issues in the Senate. Leave it at that.
Dave, we're getting a lot of noise complaints at Walton.
Okay.
I want you to know.
Okay, I'd like to visit with you about that. I know Todd.
Love to hear it.
But I will say, in all seriousness, our goal is really to be as proactive as we can. And one of the things that you will see from us that comes out of this legislation is, and we're hearkening back to the audit that we went through when I first came on 9 years ago. We'll be coming up with an action plan that has all of the things in the bill that it requires us to do, who's going to be responsible for it, how we're going to do it, what the deadlines are, what reviews we need to do, so that when we get asked by Legislative Review Committee, how you doing? We can have a very good way to say we're implementing all the things that are in the bill and be responsive to that. So we'll look forward to sharing that with you sometime after the session as we put that together.
And do worry in all seriousness about the tipping the balance to a front range centered board, and I know that's front and center on your minds.
It is. We just want to make sure, again, that we're meeting the intent of the legislation and the governor's intent, and at least the definition of the board member eligibility for the two new positions was expanded to require some degree of familiarity with aviation infrastructure and development. So that I think will help with that as well. The one other board position that is also still in there is the ex officio member from the Colorado Department of Public Health and the Environment, where they're not a voting member, but that provision is still in there. We didn't really see that as an issue because we have a great relationship with CDPHE, and we always have had on things like PFAS, as we've talked about in the past, and with lead and avgas. So we didn't necessarily have an issue with that because that basically is just kind of institutionalizing the relationship we already have. And as an ex officio member, they don't vote. So
it changes the dynamic quite a bit.
It does indeed. And so we'll see. I have not heard yet who that might be. It will be a staffer from within CDPHE, so we'll see how that works out. But again, I think if you think about 90% of what we chat about, it doesn't have anything that's relative to CDPHE. So that might be something where we only have engagement when there is an issue. We'll have to flesh that out. It's new territory for all of us. It's the first time since the division's creation that the governance has changed.
Great, thank you. Shall we talk about the calendar?
Sure. So again, as we've covered multiple times, June 5th to the 7th up in Vail at CAOA. Still waiting for a confirmation on the time for our board meeting, but it will be on June 6th. The updates that NREL will give, Kimley Horn on the economic development study, and Raytheon will happen during my comments separately on the agenda. I'm going to cede some time to that, so that will not happen during the board meeting, but afterwards. And then our annual CAB staff workshop will be here Tuesday, August 20th from 9 to 4. And then Wednesday, will be our regular meeting at 9 o'clock on the 21st. That's it. And again, a reminder, we will not do our open records and open meetings law training at the workshop. We've moved that to December to allow more time during the workshop in August. So don't forget, we'll do that again. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you, Dave. Are there any other matters, any further public comment? Hearing none, we're adjourned.
Excellent, thank you.
Nice.